know you got an opportunity to talk to Kirk a little bit. Did you ask Kirk a question at Media Day, Big
I
Ten Media
did
Day?
not. I would like to know what is the team's goal? What are their goals? I would like to know.
Well, thank you for promoting the podcast with Cooper DeJean, Mark, because if you need to go watch that. I know you don't listen to other people's podcasts. You need to go watch the show with Cooper DeJean. I know you're busy. I asked him that question. I asked him that exact question. I said, what are this team's goals? And I said, I want you to be specific. And he actually, what's interesting about his response, and I should probably publish a short with this because I think people would watch it. His response was interesting. He said, obviously we want to win a Big Ten West title. We want to get back to Indy, win a Big Ten championship. And then he kind of paused and he said, I hate even saying this, but, we want to do more than that. We want to make the top 4. So part of me is thinking, why do you hate saying that? I almost wonder if the reason he hates saying that is because that is so foreign to the culture of Iowa football. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that's kind of Kirk Ferentz. I talked to Cooper about this. Kirk Ferentz has always been that one game at a time type of coach. And I think you have to do that to be successful.
Yes.
But what I think is powerful potentially about the leadership of this team is that you've got your head coach who's he is Kirk Ferentz, right? He is the prototypical one game at a time coach. He's seasoned, he's a veteran, etc. Then you have Cooper DeJean, who's kind of like a Kirk Ferentz prodigy, right? He's a small town kid from Iowa. He even admitted he's a one game at a time type of character. But even he acknowledged Cade's different. Cade comes from Michigan where he has, this experience winning titles, getting to the college football playoff. And he's got a different type of mindset. He's got a different chip on his shoulder that maybe we're not used to in Iowa leaders. Maybe because typically Iowa quarterbacks are inbred with that Iowa way, the Iowa culture that is the structured one game at a time, we're not looking ahead mentality. And that's good. But Mark, one thing I think that is very powerful is the ability to complement one another, whether you're talking about a marriage or a partnership in a business or, even in sports. I think the dynamics with the leaders of this football team this year have the ability to complement each other really, really well. Because you're going to have those steady eddies, as always. But now, maybe for the first time in at least some time, you have a guy in Cade McNamara who's got a different mentality. He's got big things on his mind. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think we need to embrace that. And I was just refreshed to hear Cooper DeJean bring up the Final Four. And maybe I need to ask more people. I'll be anxious. Maybe that'll be one question I try to ask some other student athletes. What are team goals? Because I want to see if other people are willing to volunteer that, but he was.
Yeah, it's a fence that you have to stay on, but it can be accomplished to be able to say, we have these huge goals, but we know that the next rep on the bench press or the next sprint or the next, that has to be the focus, because we're not going to get there if we're not developing ourselves, watching film, working out, doing everything we need to do to prepare and then execute play by play. Utah State's not going to get them to the Final Four, but without the Utah State win, they're not getting to the Final Four.
Right.
It's possible,
here's
but you know what I mean.
My only problem with not ever bringing up, because I don't, maybe he has and I've just missed it. If he's brought it up, somebody tell me. But I don't recall Kirk Ferentz ever bringing up aspirations to win a national title, at least not recently, or get to the college football playoff. I don't recall that. And some would say that's fine. They don't have a problem with that. But it doesn't seem, not that he volunteers it, because he's got that mentality, but players, coaches have never really been afraid to say, we want to win a Big Ten West title and we want to win a Big Ten championship. So why are we stopping there in our aspirations? Like, you're already projecting forward through the entire regular season. Why not project higher? That's so, if that makes sense. And I'll be anxious to hear what some of these other leaders in this team talk about.
And even to call the Big Ten championship a goal, knowing that you cannot win the Big Ten championship without winning the division. So that's
Right.
really the first accomplishment. Of course, each win's an accomplishment, but that's the first stop. So a lot of people would say, if the goal is to win a national championship, you shouldn't even talk about that because you've got to do so many things to get there, that shouldn't even be. Now, I do apologize. I've never heard this criticism on anyone on the show, but I do realize that maybe I bring up another one or two teams in this conference too often, but just as a point of comparison. But Ryan Day talks about winning every game all the time. He talks about like we're supposed to win every game. That's the standard. We realize if we lose one game, that's a disappointment. Like he talks about that
Yeah.
they're supposed to win every game.
It would be different if Iowa was winning national titles and they didn't talk about it, because then it's just like, well, our actions speak louder than words, but they don't.
Yeah.
So at some point, it would at least be nice to hear, hey, we want this. Not, you don't want the feeling that you've accepted that it's just not possible. It's just not reasonable here. I'd like to go back to 2015 and be a fly on the wall of the Iowa locker room prior to that Michigan State game.
Yeah.
What do you think that pep talk was like for Iowa before the Big Ten championship game? I mean, the playoff had to get brought up, right? Had to. You can't not bring it up. Like, we're a game away from the Final Four. We're a half away from the playoff.
Yeah.
I just would like to hear it.
Well, of course, Kirk and the players were asked that, I'm sure, every week coming down the stretch, 7-0, 8-0, 9-0.